Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. It's Tim here. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having a good day. In this video, I will be guiding you through the steps to create this cute sunset painting. So this painting is based on one of my favorite sunset memories from a trip to Florida when I was a kid. We had so much fun, and watching all of the colors get to shift and change against the ocean and watching the sailboats float along is such a magical experience and something you definitely don't forget. So I am so excited to share this with you. I'm actually thinking I want to create a little series of sunset paintings, so I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial, and you'll have to let me know what you think below. If you're on Instagram and you recreate this painting, I would absolutely love to see it, so please feel free to tag me at TimStarStudio. I've included here the brushes that I used for this painting, and it's a simple list today. We're going to use the damp brush from the Pocket Procreate version, and I actually have a video on how to create that brush from scratch up on my channel in case you need it. I would recommend turning the grain scale down to about 15% on this one, and it can be found in the Pocket Procreate version for iPhone, and we're going to be using the water pen and the soft airbrush as well. I've included here the color palette, that way you can place the colors where I put them, or you can take a screenshot of the palette. And I've also included the hex codes here, that way you can recreate the colors that I used at home. We're going to be using a square size canvas, and I would like you to create a blank layer and trace this outline, that way you have a guide for your painting. Please feel free to take breaks and enjoy the process, so when you're ready, let's set sail. So beginning our painting. When you have your layer traced, I'm going to have you put the layer between 5 and 10% opacity, just enough so we can still see it. Then with the soft airbrush and the light bright yellow, that is the second color in the third row, we're going to lay down a wash of color at the horizon line. And then with the yellow orange, that's the second color in the second row, we're going to lay a smaller stripe right where the ocean and sky meet. So next, with the darkest blue, that is the second color in the first row, you're going to lay a stripe of color at the top, and then using the blue, that is the first color in the first row, lay a stripe of color slightly underneath. Then using the pink, that is the fourth color in the second row, lay a strip of pink in the middle of the painting between the lightest yellow and the light blue. And then using the yellow orange, that is the second color in the second row, place that right underneath of the pink, leaving a small strip of the light yellow in between. And then once you have those colors down, we're going to use the Gaussian blur tool and blur it to about 31%. Making sure that all of those colors are on the same layer, we're going to create a copy of that layer and flip it vertically and line it up right underneath of it. That way it's reflecting the same image, only in reverse, upside down. Once you get your copy created, we're going to line up the bottom of the blue with the bottom of the painting. That way the two yellows in the middle kind of line up. And it doesn't matter quite as much if some of the blue at the bottom gets cut off. We're going to end up covering it with the shoreline later anyways. So next, in a new layer with the damp brush and using the darkest purple, that is the third color in the first row, we're going to start laying a dark wash of color over the top and middle of the painting to start creating our clouds, leaving just a little bit of the background showing through. And then on that same layer, using the fourth purple in the first row, we're going to lay another wash of color in the middle of the dark purple, and then using the damp brush with the blur tool with a medium size and low opacity, we're going to lightly blend the two colors out, creating the start of our clouds. Blending these two colors out against the orange and the yellow will kind of create a hazy, smoky look, which is exactly what you want. Then, in a new layer, using the magenta pink, that is the sixth color in the first row, we're going to lay down another wash of color over the lower portion of the cloud area. Just a little bit into that bright yellow area, nothing too heavy. We just want to create a little bit of color just to start the illusion of a highlight on the under part of the clouds. And then using the damp brush with the blur tool again, you're going to lightly blend it out. Once that's blended out a bit, next with the yellow-orange, that is the second color in the second row, on that same layer with the damp brush, we're going to add a little bit more color just to the bottom of the middle of the clouds and then lightly blend it out again. I love ocean sunsets, and the damp brush is definitely my favorite brush to create fluffy clouds with. Next, we're going to create the base of our shoreline. So in a new layer with the deepest maroon color, that is the 6th color in the second row, we're going to switch to using the water pen. In the bottom left-hand corner, in a slightly triangular shape, we're going to fill in the corner where the sand is going to be, and then still using the damp brush with the blur tool, we're going to lightly blend out the edges. So when you're happy with your blending, next we're going to create our little island. So I'm just going to zoom up on our island outline, and with the water pen again in a new layer using the dark blue purple, that is the 5th color in the second row, with a light hand we're going to paint over our island outline. And then using the eraser tool with the soft airbrush, we're going to lightly clean up some of those edges just a little bit and then lightly blend it out, just softening it up a bit. I'm going to kind of allow some of the transparency from the background to come into the island area, just to create kind of a natural highlight from the background where the sun would be hitting the top part of the trees of the island. I love to play with transparencies. They really allow us to work smarter and not harder, and this is one of my favorite tips and tricks I can give you. And while we're still on this side of the painting, so next in a new layer using the water pen again and using the color black, that is the 1st color in the 3rd row, we're going to create our palm tree. And you'll definitely want to use a small size brush with a really light hand, especially at the very end of the paint stroke, kind of like a swish and flick motion, really allowing the tip to taper just a little bit. When painting palm trees, I like to add some paint strokes to the top of each palm tree branch as well, that kind of curve downwards just a little bit, almost like the palm tree is blowing in the wind. Just kind of fills out the branch a little bit better and it makes it look a little bit more realistic. Palm trees have such a unique fan shape to their leaves, so if you're having trouble, I would definitely Google some palm tree pictures, and I don't want to insert any here because I don't want to get in trouble for using anyone's pictures as a reference, so that will definitely help a lot if you're struggling with painting the shape outline. But this is your palm tree, so you can put as many or as little leaves as you'd like on it. I kind of feel like this palm tree needs a name. What should her name be? Who is she? What does she do with her time? Let me know below. Next, we're going to paint our sun. So on a new layer using the white yellow, that is the 2nd color in the 3rd row again, we're going to use the soft airbrush, and where the sun outline is on the right hand side in the middle, going to lay down a little bit of color where the sun is, and then using the Gaussian blur tool, blur it to about 11%. And then in another new layer, you're going to paint a little circle over the outline to create our sun. In a new layer, using the damp brush again, and using the purple, that is the 4th color in the 1st row, we're going to create some shadows in the water. And with a small brush and medium opacity with a light hand, you're going to lightly sketch out over the water area and then lightly blend it out. Then I'm going to create a copy of this layer to make it a little bit darker and then lightly blend out the copy layer as well, which will help create a little bit more depth and a little bit of a better blend. Then I'm going to add just a little bit more color up by the island area just to create a little more shadow reflection and lightly blend it out. Now we're going to add some vibrancy to this piece. So in a new layer, we're going to go back up to the very top right underneath of the trace layer and set the layer in overlay. And then using the color black, that is the 1st color in the 3rd row, and turning the opacity of this layer to about 40%, we're going to lightly overlay a wash of color over the top of the whole painting. And then we're going to just lightly blend it out, just leaving a little bit of that texture behind. And we're still using the damp brush with the blur tool for the blending. Adding and playing with different overlays really help to increase the shadows, the lightness or vibrancy of your work really easily, and that'll give you more colors and subtlety of color to use, which allows you to work from a smaller palette, which is really nice. I don't like to have a huge palette. I like to have just a couple of colors and then work from there. So you will always see me using a range of colors from a couple of midtones to just a few light and dark colors, because sometimes you really don't even need a true white or black. So you'll see me using yellows or light purples to brighten and dark blues or maroons a lot to deepen the shadows up, which then makes it really easy to warm an image up or to cool it down that way as well. And I have found with Procreate, you definitely don't want to start overly saturated too, because there's nowhere to go. And I find if you're wanting to paint landscapes or people or nature in a more realistic way, starting with a bunch of really vibrant tones kind of unfortunately creates a hot mess from my own experiences, especially when you go to print your work. It won't look right, the colors will be off or too dark, And I've also noticed with Procreate, sometimes the more vibrant colors don't mix as well together in the program. Sometimes I think the program doesn't know what to do with certain colors, and you could end up with some weird blends. I've had it where I've been blending two really saturated colors together, and the mix between them will be really gray or greened out a little bit and a lot more dull than the colors next to it. And it's really hard to desaturate a painting than it is to make it more vibrant, which is why I always start much less vibrant and slowly make it more vibrant as you go. That way it's more predictable and you can adjust it than starting super vibrant off the bat. Well, now that I've gotten off my soapbox, next we're going to go back to our tutorial. So we're going to add a new layer, and using the bright white yellow, that is the second color in the third row, and setting the layer in overlay and the opacity of the layer to about 60%, we're going to create some highlights. So first we're going to put a little bit of color around the sun to create a little glow around it. And you'll want to use a medium-sized brush with low opacity so that way you can really build the color up. And then we're going to put some highlights right under the sun in the water to create the illusion of a sun reflection. In the water with the reflection, you'll want to start a little bit thinner and like fan outwards, kind of like in a funnel shape, just because the light will be more dispersed the further away you get from the light source. And then we're going to add a little bit of highlight on the underside of the clouds and then lightly over the water, just being careful not to get rid of all of the depth that you just created. So you want to make sure to use a really light hand. And once you're happy with the amount of color that you have over the image, you're going to lightly blend it out with the damp brush. I also went through and added a little bit more highlight to the horizon line just to create a harder edge between the water and the sky. And when you're ready to blend, make sure to use a really light hand just so we get rid of any of the hard edges that sometimes overlay can create. But be careful not to get rid of all of the texture just so we don't blend away all of our details we just created. And when you're done with your blending and happy with your painting, we've reached our painting break, friend. And I'm having so much fun creating this piece with you, and I hope that you're enjoying the process because that is truly where the joy of painting is. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for supporting my artwork and my channel, and I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying this video so far. It really helps my channel out. Definitely let me know too below what your favorite part of the painting has been so far, or if you have any questions. And if you need to take a break to refresh and come back when you're ready, I think I'm gonna get a coffee too, so I'll be here waiting when you're ready to start again. So beginning part 2. So we're going to create a new layer and put it into overlay, and then using the bright yellow white color, that is the second color in the third row, with a small brush and medium opacity, we're going to start creating our detail highlights. We're going to put them over the sun's reflection, the clouds, and the rest of the water as well. Once you're happy with the amount of highlights you've added, I'll meet you back here when you're ready to blend. And then using the blur tool with the damp brush again, with a light hand and a medium to small size brush and low opacity, you're going to start blending it out. And definitely don't be afraid to re-add areas of highlight with the brush just in case you blend them away, because sometimes it can happen and it happens really fast. And everything is starting to come together so well. I feel like this is the part of the piece that it's really starting to come to life and all of the colors are so bright and vibrant. And once you're happy with your blending, I'm going to have you create a copy canvas layer of the painting and then put it on the top layer over top of the outline layer. So that'll be the very top now. And then you're going to add a new layer and put it into hard light. And then using the black color again, we're going to lightly create some shadows in the water. The bigger and longer shadows are going to be closer to the shoreline, and the thin, less defined shadows are going to be closer to the horizon line in the middle, so don't be afraid to make some bold decisions. Waves come in all shapes and sizes, and it's super fun to paint them, and then you're going to lightly blend all of them out. So next, in a new layer, using the white yellow color again and the damp brush and putting the layer in overlay, we're going to create some highlights over top of the waves. And these highlights will go just on top of the dark areas that we just created, just to highlight the crest of the wave and really give the illusion that the wave is starting to roll over the closer it gets to the shoreline. And you're going to want to make sure to use a really light hand with low opacity. That way you can really build that color up. And then in that same layer, we're going to use the maroon, that is the sixth color in the second row, and lightly add some more shadow over the clouds just to add a little bit more detail. So now it's time to define the shoreline. So next we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to switch over to using the water pen again, and using the yellow-white color, that is the second color in the third row, we're going to start lightly sketching in the shoreline and start defining the top of the waves. And something kind of cool to make this really look realistic is to add a second or third wavy line behind the line that connects the shoreline and the sand. And then you're going to lightly blend these areas out with a very light hand with the blur tool still set with the damp brush. And this will definitely help marry all of the textures together, and you're going to want to be very minimal with the blending of the edges of the waves just because you can really easily blend away all of your details. Next, we're going to create another new layer and repeat the same process using the water pen again, and we're just going to lightly define even more of those areas to create some more detail, and then just very lightly blend it out to get rid of any of the hard edges. Now I'm going to create another copy canvas layer, and you're going to put that layer on the very top, and then you're going to create another new layer and put it into overlay, and then switching back over to the damp brush with that same yellow-white color we were just using, we're going to lighten and define even more of the highlight area around the sun. And you're going to want to use a small brush with medium opacity, and these highlights that are really small and really concentrated underneath of the light source are going to slowly get wider and more diffused as the light source gets further away. And I would use a very light cross-hatching-esque motion just to make sure that each new paint stroke is slightly off-center of the one before it. That way they're not all right underneath of each other and they look like just a straight line going down. And then we're going to put a little bit more highlight over the water and a little bit more on the clouds too, just to add a little bit more detail and to brighten them up just a little bit more. And then we're going to lightly blend it out. And when you're happy with your blending, we're going to create yet another copy canvas layer, and I'm going to turn the saturation of this new copy layer up to about 52%. And we're going to create yet another copy of this new layer, and so that'll give you two different copy layers. The top of the new copy layer, I want you to put it into black and white with the hue and saturation tool, and then put another blank layer over top of these two, so you'll have a blank one, a black and white one, and then the real one. So with this new layer, I want you to put it into overlay as well, and then using the bright yellow-white color again, we're going to add some more detail highlights. And this is one of my absolute favorite ways to brighten and to add highlights to any image is by putting it into black and white. Sometimes when things are in color, you can't really see value very well, so I highly recommend doing this. And we're just going to add a little bit more texture over the entirety of the painting, and then we're going to lightly blend it out. And we are almost to the end of the painting, so I'll meet you back here, friend, when you're ready to move on to the last couple of steps. So to begin the last couple of steps, first I'm going to have you turn off the black and white layer now. We don't need it anymore. And then next in a new layer, we're going to add some small details, and we're going to go back to using the water pen and the color black. In a slightly smaller size brush, we're going to add a couple more paint strokes over top of the palm tree, really just kind of filling it out a little bit more, making it look a little bit more natural. And then I'm going to go back in and clean some details up. I'm going to go back in and use the damp brush and color drop part of the ocean and sharpen the water line between the island and the horizon up just a little bit. You may not need to do this step in your painting. I just wanted to sharpen that line up between the water and the sky just a little bit more. And then we're going to go in and define the beach edge line. Switching back over to the water pen, we're really going to sharpen up the shoreline and start to cap the waves. And the water pen creates such fun little effects. It's such a great utility brush, and I'm so sad that I didn't really use it until now. So after you get all of your waves created and you're happy with how it looks, you're going to make a copy of that wave layer, and on the bottom of the two layers with the damp brush, you're going to lightly blend the edges out with a light hand, and that's going to really help tie the two textures together. And I would really only blend the outside edges of each of the new paint strokes for each of the new waves. It is okay to leave a little bit of the sharpness in the middle. That way it really looks like the wave is starting to roll over and to crash, and you don't want that to look like overly blended. And then last, I'm going to add just a little bit of dark color just to extend the island out just a little bit more, just so it blends a little bit better with the background. And then I want to add just a little bit more color here right underneath of the sun just to finish sharpening up the horizon line, and we're done. I hope you enjoyed this painting, friend. The last thing for us left to do is to sign our work. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. The joy is truly in the journey, and I'm so proud of you, friend. If you recreate this painting, I would absolutely love to see it, so definitely tag me at TimStarStudio. And if you're still in a painting mood and want to see more, I have a couple of other tutorials and videos up on my channel, so definitely go check those out. And if you like this video and want to see more content like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, friend. Happy painting!